The first thing you learn in Aeron Station isn't tactics or formations. It's how to breathe. Every corridor flexes. Every wall hums with the shifting tides of a gas giant's atmosphere beneath us. Pressure is always here, an invisible hand pressing on skin, lungs, and thought. The veterans walk with it. The rest of us are still catching up. When Instructor Halleck summoned us into the chamber, the air already felt different, charged, expectant. We stood in a wide circle under the amber glow of the pressure domes, every cadet, a mirror of their own species' tradition. Sarah Thick's gleamed like crystal. Core 8's buoyancy sacks pulsed, keeping his bulk strangely weightless. Others flexed symbiotic tools that pulsed around their arms like jewelry. Halleck's voice was low, resonant, carried not by volume, through the chamber's panels. "Build a retrieval implement," he said. "Nothing from your kits, no adhesives, no powered tools. Use what you see. Bring the suspended beacon down." He didn't repeat himself. He didn't have to. The others moved immediately. Sarah extended a thread of crystal, twisting it into a precise, growing lattice. Core 8 inflated his sacks, preparing a buoyant jump. Another cadet sang to the walls, coaxing harmonics into a sonic sling. I sat still, feeling the floor. Aeron's girders flex with the storms below, slow and subtle. I tapped my boot to the beat and watched the beacon drift left, then right, always returning. There was a maintenance grill near my knee, a thin aluminum slat trembling with each pulse. I slid it free, working it loose with my hands. It screeched once. From my belt, I pulled the copper mesh ring, snapped the tag off, and twisted the mesh around the grill's end. A crude barb formed, jagged but functional. It wasn't elegant. It didn't hum, glow, or pulse. It was just a bent bar with a hook. When I stood, Core 8 laughed, booming, almost good nature. "Going fishing, Terran," he said. I didn't answer. I wasn't listening to him anyway. I was listening to the air. The beacon dipped left. I swung the hook low, cast it not at the beacon, but where it would reach. The barb caught. A hush fell, broken only by the faint metallic twang as the line pulled taut. I braced, leaned back, and let the floor's rhythm draw the beacon down until it landed softly against the tiles. Sarah froze mid-weave. Core 8's sacks deflated. Even the sonic sling cut off. No one said anything at first, and that silence was louder than laughter. Halleck stepped forward, eyes unreadable, and touched the beacon. He didn't praise me. He didn't scold the others. He simply logged something on his wrist slate. Then he looked at me for half a second longer than he should have. I carried the hook back to the maintenance cage, but I didn't return it. Instead, I etched 3 words into its side. Etched 3 words into the flat side with a shard of broken crystal I'd palmed when no one was watching. Then I hung it back where anyone might see. That night, in my bunk, I felt the ache in my knee. That night, in my bunk, I felt the ache in my knee from sitting too long, and the sting in my palm. They weren't marks of victory. They were reminders. Tools fail. Pressure never stops. The question is whether you can use it. The next trial wasn't staged in a calm chamber. It was out in the ducts. Aeron Station had They told us it was a team retrieval drill. 3 cadets per group. Find the beacon, cross 3 shifting pressure chambers, and return intact. Sarah moved with crystalline precision, every step a calculated angle. Core 8 inflated his sacks, buoyant enough he seemed half-weightless. I kept low, hand on the railing, eyes on the rhythm. The whole place swayed like a breathing thing beneath our feet. Halfway across, I saw the gap ahead. A section of the catwalk was missing, cut away deliberately. Sarah frowned, her filament threads twitching, but there was no anchor. Core 8 flexed, preparing to leap into the storm. "Wait," I said, but the wind stole half my voice. I grabbed the emergency banner rolled against the wall, tore it free, and tied it into a makeshift line. anchored it to the railing with 2 cable clamps from my belt, counterweight on the other end. The line snapped tight, swaying like a pendulum. I told them to lean into the wind. It would carry them across. Sarah didn't trust me, but she tested the line anyway. Her crystalline body glinted as she slid across, precise and cold. Core 8 followed, sacs puffing, body buoyant. He let the storm carry him, weightless for a moment, until he landed safely too. I was the last. The wind shifted as I swung, dropping me short. My shoulder slammed into the far railing, pain white-hot. I hung there for a second before dragging myself over, shoulder out of socket. I knew the feeling. I bit back the noise. I rolled it against the metal rung, felt the joint snap back with a wet crunch. Vision swam, but I didn't stop moving. Vision swam, but I didn't stop. We still had 2 chambers left, and I wasn't about to fall behind now. Inside the ducts, the wind screamed. The beacon's signal echoed faintly, pulsing through the chaos as Sarah tried to weave crystal threads into a trap. Core 8 wanted to charge straight through, brute force against the storm's shifting chaos. I knelt, breathing shallow, watching dust motes whip and scatter. The rhythm was there. I scavenged what I had left. Half a torn banner strip, a bent panel, a handful of ballast beads from Core 8's kit. With them, I built a crude brace for my knee and cinched it until the pain dulled into a steady roar instead of a scream. Then I sat still. 10 minutes, no more. After that, I began climbing. It wasn't heroic. It was brutal work. I used my arms to haul upward, my bad leg dragging like dead weight. He reached the ledge an hour later. Vos was waiting there, his form steady in the storm, pulling me the last few inches to safety.
You shouldn't have moved. I wasn't planning on dying down there.
We found shelter near a thermal vent. My leg was stabilized, my wrist wrapped tight, but the swelling had already begun. The med kit included a temporary numbing agent, but the swelling had already begun. I wouldn't walk for a week, maybe 2. Back at the academy, the med staff diagnosed a torn ligament in the ankle, a hairline fracture in the wrist, and heavy bruising along the ribs. "You need rest," the med tech said, handing me a gel pack and compression wrap. No intense activity for at least 5 days. I took the treatment without complaint and returned to my dorm. Healing isn't weakness, it's part of the work. Later that night, someone passing by heard tapping again. I sat at my desk, carving slowly, shaping another piece of wood in my hands. The tapping paused only when someone knocked on the door. It was Yakai, his silhouette framed faintly in the corridor light. "You're carving again," Yakai said. I nodded. "I'm just shaping it. I won't throw it or anything this time." I set the almost finished spear beside me. If I can shape something with my hands, I'm not helpless. Yakai stood in silence for a while, his bioluminescent eyes flickering faintly, watching the flicker of light off the jagged edge. "Your kind," he said finally, "turned survival into instinct. The rest of us train for it." I didn't respond. Fix. The next day, a notice was posted to the cadet hub. Unauthorized alteration of academy furnishings prohibited. After the breach simulation, the cadets shifted in small ways. They still trained, still compared, but arrogance faltered whenever I entered the room. I noticed it. The extra seconds of silence, the way conversations dipped whenever I passed. I wasn't feared, not exactly, but no one knew where to place me anymore. I wasn't wired, flashy, or trained like them. Somehow, I was dangerous. Not by posture or strength, but by mindset. 3 days later, the Kumari cadet Theron was hospitalized. A gravity drill accident fractured 2 of his carapace plates. I visited him, though we'd barely spoken outside the simulation. I brought broth. He couldn't taste it, but I stayed anyway. When I left the medbay, Mary stopped me near the corridor junction. Her crest feathers tightened as she asked why I bothered.
She said Theron never thanked me, still called me reckless, primitives. I shrugged. People say things when they're scared.
I looked past her to the training hall down the corridor. They weren't scared of me. but of what I represented. The Academy's directorate began to notice. My profile updated 6 times in 2 weeks. More psych evaluations. More monitoring. Monitoring logs flagged my carving as habitual. Strategic concern, they called it. I wasn't disciplined, only watched more closely. Then came mid-semester rotation. Real-time drills in open terrain. Multi-species squads. We were dropped into the Rexus range. Harsh cliffs, sharp winds, low-gravity pockets from tectonic shifts. Vashid took the lead, his biolens sweeping arcs across the terrain. Mary flew short hops, feathers catching thermals. I ran point on the ground.
Halfway to the beacon, the cliff gave out beneath me. I didn't scream.
I hit a slope, then another. The last drop was vertical. Impact twisted my ankle grotesquely. Wrists. I couldn't stand. My leg was useless. My breathing shallow, wrist throbbing. I stayed down.
Above me, Mary's voice cracked faintly through comms. I pressed my wrist. Still breathing, I rasped.
Negative. Go for the beacon. I'll only slow you down.
There was hesitation in their silence. I didn't blame them. When the line went quiet, I exhaled and looked around the crevice. I pulled myself toward a rusted surveillance post, inch by inch. Every motion burned, my wrist screamed, but I kept moving. I scavenged the rusted post, a strip of metal, twisted wire, snapped rods. Not a weapon, but a brace. 10 minutes, no more. Then I climbed. Not heroic, brutal. My arms burned, my palms tore, but I kept hauling upward. An hour later, I reached the ledge. Voshid waited. "You shouldn't have moved," he said, pulling me over. I wasn't planning on dying down there. We found shelter near a thermal vent. My legs stabilized, my wrist wrapped tight. Voshid carried numbing agents, but swelling had already begun. Back at the academy, scans showed a torn ligament, a wrist fracture, bruised ribs. 2 weeks off duty, 4 before I'd walk right again.
By the 5th day, I used a crutch. I didn't go near the training hall, but cadets still paused, conversations dipping when I passed.
When I returned to the hall, drills stopped. Eyes followed my limp. Halix narrowed his gaze but said nothing, only gestured toward the dummies. I bypassed plasma batons, ignored adhesive packs. Instead, I reached for a loose bench slat from the wrist. I knelt, sharpening the slat against the floor. Softer this time, slower, cleaner, more balanced. I faced the dummy, holding the makeshift spear low. No pride, no defiance, just ready. I jabbed once. The wood embedded 2 inches. No splinters, no echo, just a quiet thunk. Later, Yakai found me at the water unit. "You're not trying to prove anything," he said. I sipped. Wasn't trying before either. I told him about Joseph Blewett, a boy from Earth who survived 5 days lost, carving a spear from a fence post. Jills. Yakai's mandibles twitched, skeptical still, but thoughtful. He said nothing. I looked at the spear, still inert. Seminar week came. Crystal nets, harmonic weapons, symbiotes pulsing like fire. On the 3rd day, Halix called my name. His voice carried across the hall. I didn't touch the weapons. Instead, I tied strips to the ceiling vent. They fluttered, revealing airflow no one had ever noticed. Strips bent and danced, tracing pressure lines. Cadets shifted uneasily, realizing currents had always been there. They'd simply never looked. I passed out steel rings. "Twist them," I said. "Bend them. Make your own hook. Doesn't matter if it's ugly, only that it holds." No applause followed. Only silence. Rings turned in hands. Some bent them. Weeks later, the academy mounted my first hook behind glass. Leverage.